I get it, you're staring at the shelf, scrolling through a dozen pallet trucks, and you're wondering if any of them are actually worth the money. You don't want to end up with a piece of equipment that looks good on paper but turns into a daily frustration on the shop floor. You need something that will lift those heavy pallets without wobbling, that can survive the grind of concrete, and that won't cost you a small fortune if it fails. That hesitation is exactly why I'm taking a close look at the Wesco Industrial Products 272149 Economizer pallet truck before you decide. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the job this truck is built for. A pallet truck is basically the manual version of a forklift, just a set of forks, a handle, and wheels that let you lift a pallet a few inches off the ground and roll it wherever you need. In a small warehouse, a busy garage, or even a large home workshop where you're moving boxes of tools, a reliable pallet jack can shave minutes off every load. The Wesco Economizer is positioned as a heavy-duty option, boasting a 4,400-pound capacity, steel construction, and polyurethane wheels. Those numbers matter when you're consistently handling pallets that are near the upper end of a standard pallet's weight, like bulk bags of cement, stacks of metal parts, or fully loaded grocery pallets. One of the first things I noticed when digging through the product details is the use of steel for the frame. Steel gives the truck a solid feel, and it's the kind of material that can take a few bumps in a busy dock without bending. The wheels are polyurethane, not the cheaper rubber you see on some entry-level jacks. Polyurethane is resistant to impact and wear, which translates to smoother rolling on concrete and less frequent wheel replacements. If you've ever tried to push a pallet jack over a rough floor with a rubber tire that squeals and skids, you'll appreciate the quiet glide this model offers. The load capacity of 4,400 pounds is where the Economizer name really starts to make sense. Many pallet trucks in the same price range are limited to around 3,000 pounds, which forces you to split loads or use a second jack. With Wesco's higher limit, you can keep a single pallet intact and avoid the extra handling steps that add up in labor time. For a small distribution center that moves pallets of bulk goods daily, that extra capacity can be the difference between a smooth workflow and a bottleneck. Now, let's talk about the practical side of using this truck on a typical day. The forks have a service range from 2.9 inches up to 7.5 inches, which covers most standard pallets. That means you can get under a low-profile pallet without digging your fingers into the fork ends, and you can still raise a full pallet high enough to clear a dock lip. The overall dimension's about 63 inches long, 27 inches wide, and just over 48 inches tall make it a manageable size for most aisles, but it's not a compact, narrow aisle model. If your warehouse has tight 36-inch aisles, you'll need to measure carefully before committing. One hidden trade-off that shows up once you start using the truck is the weight of the unit itself. The steel frame and heavy-duty components give it a solid build, but they also add a few dozen pounds of dead weight. Lifting the empty truck onto a loading dock or into a truck bed takes a bit more effort than a lighter aluminum model. For most users, this isn't a deal-breaker, but if you're the kind of person who needs to lift the jack off a ramp or lift it into a van every day, you'll notice the difference. Another point worth mentioning is that this truck does not have a built-in brake system. The design relies on the operator's grip on the handle and the natural resistance of the wheels to hold the load in place. In a busy environment where you might need to pause on an incline or a slight slope, you'll have to be deliberate about keeping the handle locked. For a flat warehouse floor, that's the norm. It's fine, but it's something to keep in mind if your dock has a noticeable grade. The Wesco Economizer has earned a 4.6-star rating from 8 verified reviewers, which tells me that the handful of people who have actually used it are generally happy. While there aren't detailed comments to dissect, the high average suggests that the strength's capacity, wheel durability, and steel frame are resonating with buyers. Conversely, the low number of reviews hints that this isn't a product you'll find on every shop floor, so you might be one of the early adopters in your specific niche. So who should consider buying this pallet truck? If you run a small to medium warehouse where pallets regularly push the 3,000-pound mark, if you have a workshop that moves heavy equipment on pallets, or if you're a DIY enthusiast,